The Star Chef and the Refrigerator Miracle of Lilliputian. Chapter 1. Lewin lives in the interstellar age, alone in a research station on the edge of the galaxy, and her life is monotonous and deserted. One day, she stumbled upon a quirky refrigerator with flashing runes appearing on the shell, like a signal from another world. When she opened the refrigerator door, a cold air surged out with light and shadow. There lived a group of villains in the refrigerator, dressed in clothes from different eras, some like medieval farmers, and some like scientists in the future world. The villains looked at her in horror, trembling, their eyes full of anticipation and help. Lewin's heart moved, and she decided to include the villain in the other world in the refrigerator as a protection scope. Chapter 2. The first little man, named Alvin, jumped out of the refrigerator with a trembling voice. Please save us. Li Wan smiled and took out the ready-to-eat nutrition package at hand. Eat it first, warm and warm. When the little people bite into the food, the light in the refrigerator flashes, and their figures gradually stabilize, with trust in their eyes. Is it a god? A villain asked in a low voice. Li Wan was stunned. She was originally just kind enough to feed her, but unexpectedly the villains regarded her as a god. A faith value meter appeared at the top of the refrigerator, flashing with a pale golden light, and the number slowly rose. Chapter 3. As the faith value increases, the refrigerator begins to automatically generate exotic foods, steamed buns falling from the sky, eggs taller than tall buildings, giant tree-like broccoli, and even floating honey lakes. The little people exclaimed again and again, rushing to eat, and the hill-steamed buns were divided into countless small pieces by them, and the aroma filled the room. Lewin was stunned and thought, this refrigerator is too exaggerated, right? However, she soon realized that with each feeding, the faith value increased, which meant, she may really have incredible powers. Chapter 4. A villain tentatively took out a towering broccoli from the refrigerator, and after eating it raw, he glowed, as if his body was being charged. The other villains were stunned and knelt down in front of Lewin. The gods, save us, the belief value of the god. Refrigerator flashed to a new height, and Li Wan felt a wonderful energy flowing through her body, and she could even sense the emotions of the villains. Chapter 5. Lewin began to feed regularly and observe the changes in faith value. Whenever the villain eats strange food, her power increases slightly. She can manipulate the substances in the refrigerator and even distribute the food to each villain on its own. The lives of the little people are rapidly improving. The temperature in the refrigerator is automatically adjusted, and when floating food falls, it can be accurately lowered into everyone's hands. The little people began to organize simple communities, with tiny houses made of eggshells and broccoli trees as traffic bridges. Chapter 6. One day, a little man in cosmic armor appeared, his voice calm and majestic. God, I am from the realm of destruction, and our world is collapsing. Li Wan took out the giant egg in the refrigerator and distributed it to him and his companions. The egg actually contained a miniature light, like an energy core. The faith value rose again. Lewin felt the expansion of her own power, and the refrigerator began to emit a soft golden light, as if smiling at her. Chapter 7. The scale of Lilliputian is expanding rapidly, and the ecology in the refrigerator is becoming more and more fantastical. Floating milk tea lakes, candies flying in the air, and even cake arcs that move automatically. The villains began to call Lewin the god of all things, carving her name on miniature statues. Lewin was surprised, secretly vigilant. Will this increase in faith bring unknown risks? Chapter 8. The refrigerator begins to develop microcracks, and passages to other disaster worlds appear. Lewin led the little people to the edge of the passage to observe the scene of another world, the ruins swept by the flames, the ocean of floating crystals, and the cold wind of the eternal night planet. She began to understand that faith not only strengthened her own power, but also affected the world in which the villains lived. Feed, protect, and save, is this my mission? Li Wan whispered. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 9. The villains began to spontaneously organize patrols and build defense facilities with strange materials in the refrigerator. Floating eggs are made into towers, giant broccoli flowers are used as pillars of the city gate, and milk tea lakes form a moat. Lewin discovered that she could move and distribute materials independently to each villain with just her thoughts. The faith meter at the top of the refrigerator beats faster, as if reminding her that her strength is growing, and so is her responsibility. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 10. Lewin's first attempt to connect the refrigerator to multiple worlds reached out to the glimmer inside the crack, and strange substances were automatically generated. Giant floating steamed buns fall through the cracks and crash into the central square of Lilliputians. The villains knelt down and cheered, "God, bless us." For the first time, Lewin felt the practical role of her own power, not only to feed food, but also to change the environment of another world. She took a deep breath and secretly made up her mind, "I want to be the patron saint of all villains, even if this power brings unknown risks." Chapter 11. A giant chocolate waterfall falls from the crack in the refrigerator, and the thick chocolate flows into the milk tea lake of Lilliputian. The children exclaimed, and the children couldn't wait to reach out and grab the chocolate, splashing a sweet fragrance. Lewin waved her hand gently, and the chocolate river automatically diverted into each villain's home to avoid flooding the house. The value of faith flashed with golden light, and Lewin felt a warm current flowing through her body. It turns out that my strength can not only feed, but also control the distribution of materials. She smiled secretly in her heart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 12. Lilliputian began to spontaneously build a candy bridge to connect Milk Tea Lake and Cake Mountain. The children were running on the bridge, and the pieces of candy flew with their feet, filling the air with sweetness. Lewin instructed everyone to cut the floating cake into small pieces and use it to build miniature houses and defense towers. The growth of exotic plants in the refrigerator accelerates, and the towering broccoli flowers guard the town like a guardian spirit. The villains called Lewin the god of all things, and their faith value increased again. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 13. The rift in the other world expands, and the miniature inhabitants of another catastrophe world cross over. This time, they came from the world of flames, and they were still on fire. Lewin took out the hill-steamed buns in the refrigerator to cool them down, and the flames gradually dissipated. The villains knelt down and thanked each other, and their faith soared to new heights. For the first time, Lewin felt the true power of the interaction between matter and life in another world. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 14. A strange phenomenon occurred in the refrigerator. The floating egg automatically broke and a golden liquid flowed out. The villain poured liquid into the eggshell tower, and the tower instantly shone brightly, like a miniature energy core. Lewin realized that her power was no longer limited to feeding, but also transformed the infrastructure of Lilliputians. The faith value meter is shining with gold, and the belief of the villains is also strengthened. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 15. Milk Tea Lake suddenly appears in a giant whirlpool, attracting floating food. The villains panicked, worried that the lake would get out of control. Lewin only needs to think, the chocolate river and cake arc are automatically adjusted, and the lake water flows smoothly. Children excitedly frolic by the lake, and the candies flying in the whirlpool sparkle like a rainbow. Li Wan smiled and said, "The end of the world is absurd, but it can be so fun." Underscore 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 un. Chapter 16. The frequency of feeding supplies from refrigerators has increased, and floating fruit trees, giant cake towers, and even miniature candy trains have been dropped from high altitudes. The villains began to organize the agricultural and transportation system, using broccoli as bridges and floating steamed buns as platforms. Lewin realized that the higher her faith value, the greater her control, and the more stable the world in the refrigerator. The villains respected her more and more, and began to celebrate the arrival of food in the form of festivals. Li Wan smiled secretly. In this apocalypse, it is possible to establish a fantasy civilization. Chapter 17. One day, a miniature storm emerges from the crack in the refrigerator, carrying ice crystals and candy. The little people were trapped on the cake bridge, screaming repeatedly. Lewin stretched out her hand to control the energy of the refrigerator. The storm stopped instantly, and the candy fell like rain. The faith value soared again, and Lewin felt the increase in her own strength. The little people worshipped her and called her the god of storms, and the children laughed continuously. Chapter 18. Strange creatures begin to spawn in the refrigerator. Candy fish in the milk tea lake fly, and many trees grow on the cake. The little people use these resources to build schools, medical centers, and amusement rides. Lewin waved her hand lightly, distributing materials independently, ensuring that every villain had equal access to resources. The faith value meter flashed faster, and Li Wan felt a strong flow of divine power. Chapter 19. Otherworldly rifts connect more disaster worlds, ice wasteland, fiery desert, endless night planet. Under Lewin's guidance, the villains build fortifications and use floating steamed buns to resist extreme weather. Lewin discovered that her thoughts could even affect the stability of the cracks channel. Lilliputian gradually formed a stable society, and the residents' belief in her rose like a tide. Chapter 20. Lewin held a national dessert festival for the first time, where the villains displayed the strange food generated in the refrigerator. Floating broccoli, giant eggs, milk tea lakes, and candy trains complement each other. The villains knelt down and cheered, calling her the patron saint of all things. The faith value broke through the peak, and Lewin felt unprecedented power, not only to feed, but also to transform the environment, stabilize the cracks in the world, and influence the order of the other world. She whispered, "I will guard you until the last little man is safe." Chapter 21. The fridge crack opened again, bringing in a micro-inhabitant of a fiery wasteland that burned with a glimmer of light all over their bodies. The villains panicked. Lewin took out the floating steamed buns. The warm aroma quickly cooled down, and the flames dissipated. The flame residents knelt down gratefully, their faith jumped, and Lewin felt that her strength had increased again. The inhabitants of Lilliputian began to discuss the Patroness festival to celebrate her power and protection. Chapter 22. Giant broccoli grows a spiral staircase on its own, connecting the worlds of the refrigerator cracks. Children frolic on the spiral staircase as candy rains down like colorful petals. Li Wan stretched out her hand and pointed, and the fruit automatically fell into the hands of the villain, and everyone could divide the resources equally. The villains exclaimed, "The power of the gods is truly omnipotent." The faith value has increased again, and the light in the refrigerator has flickered even more. Chapter 23. A miniature whirlpool appeared in the milk tea lake, driving the floating materials to rotate and fly. Children scream and playfully chase floating candies. Lewin only needs to think, the whirlpool stabilizes, and the materials are automatically distributed according to the needs of each villain. As her faith value increased, Lewin began to be able to sense the moods and needs of the villains, as if she was connected to their hearts. Chapter 24. The crack in the refrigerator brings a miniature inhabitant of the eternal night planet, who emits a cold light all over their bodies. Lewin took out hot steamed buns and floating cakes to dispel the cold. The villains knelt down and thanked each other, their faith soared again, and Lewin's power became more stable. The size of Lilliputian gradually expands, and the children begin to organize agriculture, transportation, and defense systems. underscore 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 un. Chapter 25. The floating egg automatically hatches into a miniature ball of light, which flies over the Lilliputian kingdom, illuminating the entire kingdom. Children chase balls of light, screaming and laughing, and strange substances float around in the refrigerator. Lewin felt that her power was integrated with the refrigerator world, and her control ability became more and more accurate. Her faith flashed with gold, and the villain's respect for her reached its peak. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 26. Drop a giant chocolate train from the crack in the refrigerator to automatically transport floating supplies. The little people are busy building tracks to introduce trains into the Milk Tea Lake and Cake Hill. Li Wan only needs to wave his hand, the train runs automatically, and every villain can get resources. The villains called her the patron saint of all things, and the children clapped their hands and cheered happily. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 27. Otherworldly rifts connect more disaster worlds, ice wastelands, flame deserts, giant stone forests. Lewin leads the villains on patrols, stabilizing the cracks and saving residents with each feeding. Floating steamed buns, giant broccoli, and milk tea lakes have become the core of Lilliputian's defense. As her faith value rises, her power can influence multiple other worlds and change the world order. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 28. Lilliputian held the first candy games, and children competed between Cake Mountain and Milk Tea Lake. Floating candies are used as competition prizes, and chocolate balls serve as obstacles. Lewin waved her hand gently, and the supplies were automatically transported, ensuring that each child received a fair prize. Her faith value flickered, she could foresee the needs and actions of the villains, and was omniscient and omnipotent like a god. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 29. A miniature sky city descended from the crack in the refrigerator and floated over the Milk Tea Lake. The little people climb the castle, explore bizarre technology, and learn to make candy machines. Lewin instructed them to use floating supplies to build houses and defenses, and the town became more complete. Her faith soared, and she felt the thrill of creating a world for the first time. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 30. The floating egg bursts, hatching a miniature light elf that flies over Lilliputian. The children chase the light elves, screaming and laughing echoing through the room. Lewin reached out to control the light elves and let them automatically distribute energy to the villains in need. The villains worshipped her and called her the Guardian of Light, and her faith value increased again, and her power was incredible. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 31. The crack in the refrigerator brought miniature flame giants, who looked at Lilliputian in horror. Lewin took out the floating steamed buns, the warm aroma spread, the flames went out, and the giant knelt down to thank him. The faith value surged, and Lewin felt that her whole body was filled with energy, and she could even manipulate the matter inside the crack. The inhabitants of Lilliputian began to hold regular festivals to celebrate Lewin's protection and power. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 32. A miniature whirlwind occurred in the floating Milk Tea Lake, driving cake pieces and candies to fly. The children screamed and chased, Lewin's mind moved, the whirlwind stabilized, and the candy automatically fell into the hands of each villain. Faith value flashes, and Lewin's power can accurately allocate resources from the other world and protect the order of the Lilliputian kingdom. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 33. A miniature ice city fell from the crack in the refrigerator, and the cold-covered parts of Lilliputian. Lewin warmed the environment with floating steamed buns and broccoli, and the ice and snow slowly melted. The little people knelt down, their faith value increased significantly, and Lewin felt that her strength was more stable and she could control small weather phenomena. Chapter 34. The floating broccoli flowers bloom and bear fruit, the fruits automatically fall, and each villain can get a share. The children happily picked fruits, and the cake bridge and milk tea lake formed a perfect ecological cycle. Lewin feels that her own power is completely integrated with the Lilliputian kingdom, and she can predict the actions and needs of the villain. Chapter 35. A miniature volcano descends from the crack in the refrigerator, and lava flows into the milk tea lake. The villains were frightened. Lewin waved her hand lightly, and the lava turned into a river of chocolate, safely flowing into the lake. Her faith soared, and for the first time, she felt the power of transforming disasters into miracles. Chapter 36. Lilliputian held a dessert carnival, with floating candies, milk tea lakes, and cake towers complementing each other. Children play, residents share supplies, and Lewin's power distributes everything in an orderly manner. Her faith value has increased again, and her abilities can stabilize rifts, transform the environment, and even influence the order of the other world. Chapter 37. Drop a miniature sky train from the crack in the refrigerator to automatically deliver floating supplies. The villains built the track, Li Wan moved her mind, the train ran automatically, and resources were distributed fairly. Lilliputian is as complete as a fairy tale world, children jump happily, and their faith value flashes endlessly. Chapter 38. The floating egg automatically hatches a light elf and flies over the Lilliputian kingdom. The children chased and screamed, and Lewin controlled the light elves to distribute energy and illuminate every corner. The villains called her the patron of light, and her faith value soared again. Chapter 39. A miniature flame dragon descends from the crack in the refrigerator, terrifying the Lilliputians. Lewin comforted her with floating steamed buns and milk tea lake, and the dragon turned into a guardian spirit. The faith value has risen again, and the defense of the Lilliputian country and miracle energy have increased simultaneously. Chapter 40. Lilliputian held the third candy games, with cake bridge, milk tea lake, and chocolate river becoming arenas. The children laughed and ran, and Lewin controlled the floating materials to ensure fair distribution. Her faith has reached a new high, and her power can affect multiple otherworldly environments and protect the order of Lilliputians. Chapter 41. A miniature sky city descended from the crack of the refrigerator and floated above the milk tea lake. The villains explore technology and architecture, and Lewin guides the use of floating resources to build houses. Her faith soared, and she felt the thrill of creating a world for the first time. Chapter 42. The floating chocolate waterfall automatically flows into the milk tea lake, and the little people scoop up candy with wooden spoons. The children screamed and chased, strange substances floated in the refrigerator, and Lewin controlled the flow of supplies to each villain. Her faith flickered, and her strength grew stronger, allowing her to control multiple rift substances at once. Chapter 43. Miniature ice and snow wasteland fell from the cracks in the refrigerator, and parts of Lilliputian were covered in cold. Lewin melted the ice and snow with hot steamed buns and floating cakes, and the residents knelt down in gratitude. Her faith soared again, and her power could influence the weather and protect the safety of the Lilliputian kingdom. Chapter 44. Floating broccoli flowers produce giant fruits, and each villain can get a share. The children happily pick fruits, and the cake bridge and milk tea lake form a stable ecological cycle. Lewin feels that her own power is fully integrated with Lilliputian and can predict the needs of the residents. Chapter 45. A miniature volcano descends from the crack in the refrigerator, and lava flows into the milk tea lake. Lewin waved her hand, and the lava turned into a river of chocolate, flowing safely into the lake. Her faith soared, and she could turn disasters into miracles to protect the Lilliputians. Chapter 46. Lilliputian held a dessert carnival, with floating candies, milk tea lakes, and cake towers complementing each other. The children played, the residents shared supplies, and Lewin controlled and distributed them in an orderly manner. Her faith value has increased again, and she can stabilize the cracks, transform the environment, and influence the order of the other world. Chapter 47. Drop a miniature sky train from the crack in the refrigerator to deliver floating supplies. Li Wang controls the train operation and distributes resources fairly, making Lilliputian as complete as a fairy tale world. The children jumped happily, and their faith values kept flashing. Chapter 48. Floating eggs hatch light elves and fly over the Lilliputian kingdom. The children chased and screamed, and Lewin controlled the light elves to distribute energy. The faith value soared again, and the villain called her patron of light. Chapter 49. A miniature flame dragon descends from the crack in the refrigerator, terrifying the Lilliputians. Lewin comforted her with floating steamed buns and milk tea lake, and the dragon turned into a guardian spirit. The faith value rises again, and the Lilliputian defense and miracle energy are strengthened simultaneously. Chapter 50. Lilliputian held the fourth candy games, with cake bridges, milk tea lakes, and chocolate rivers as arenas. The children laughed and ran, and Lewin controlled the floating materials to ensure fair distribution. Her faith is at its peak, and her power can influence multiple other worlds and protect the order and tranquility of the Lilliputian kingdom. Lewin whispered, "From now on, I will protect every villain until the last piece." The light in the refrigerator is flashing, and floating steamed buns, candies, milk tea lake and broccoli complement each other.